If we had a theme song for this podcast, what would it be? Would it be like Bop by like Hanson? What do you guys think it would be?
I don't know, maybe Nokia by Drake.
Like,
Shout out Jello.
absolutely not the Jello song. Hell no. I'm vetoing that. Okay, I got one more. All Star. Smash Mouth?
That's a good
Okay.
one.
Welcome to Pack the Paint. I am Daniel. I am the eldest of three brothers who love the NBA and love basketball. If you're joining us, we have something we do here where we intro a player spotlight. I have a player who was a one-time All-Star. Let's go clue by clue here. Do you guys have any guesses with one-time All-Star?
I do not. Fred VanVleet.
That's a good guess. It's not
Jeff
true.
Teague.
Also a good guess, not Jeff Teague. Okay. This player, this isn't, give me a clue. This player has played while we were alive. Ben and Sean were both born after 2000, so that should help. So that way you don't go deep in your bag. Okay, next clue. This player was a 2004 NBA champion.
So the Lakers. It's Derek Fisher, is it not?
It is not the Lakers, actually. It's the Detroit Pistons.
Oh, okay. You're not saying 04, 05, you're saying.
You said one-time All-Star.
You're saying
and
03, 04.
03, 04.
Got it.
Yeah, before you even said that, I immediately went to David Lee.
David Lee was I don't even know if was he in the NBA in 2004?
I know. Before you mentioned the date, I was locked
So
in
it's
on
gonna be
David Lee.
on that. It's gonna be on that grinded out Pistons team for sure. One time All-Star though, it might be Rip. That's what I'm thinking immediately off the bat. It might be Rip.
Let's get a little bit easier. He played for 3 NBA teams. You guys know the Detroit Pistons. The other 2 are the Utah Jazz and the New Jersey Nets.
So it won't be Rip off that. You wouldn't make it too easy and make it one of the core guys, I don't think.
It is
Yeah.
not Rip Hamilton. Okay,
Man.
so his stats from his All-Star season
One of the core guys.
were 17 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, and this is important. He shot, this is in 2007, 38% from 3.
17 and 7 and still shot threes in 2003. That's
This is 2007. When he was All-Star.
Is this Tayshaun Prince?
This is not Tayshaun.
No, you didn't mention it.
Yeah, no. Man, dude.
What are those three teams again?
They are the Detroit Pistons, the Utah Jazz, that was where he was an All-Star, and the New Jersey Nets.
Weird group of teams.
2006, 2007 Utah Jazz. Ben, I think you would have been 7 years old, right?
Yeah,
This
dude,
makes me want to think it's a power forward for some reason. It makes
It
me
is a
want to
power
think,
forward. It is not David Lee.
and it makes me want to think that I know it's not going to be one of the core guys of Chauncey, Rip, Ben Wallace. It's not going to be one of those guys.
It makes me think like
So-
David West. I think David was in the right area.
David
not gonna
West
be
I don't think
Tayshaun.
ever played for either of those teams, but yes, that is similar. That is a similar player, but there are significant differences. I'm gonna give
Something
you
that makes me want to
guys
think of.
one more guess, and then we're moving on.
It makes me want to think Paul Millsap based off All-Star on the Jazz, but I know he played for the Hawks too, so
Yeah, Paul
I don't know. I'm
Millsap
gonna attempt it.
had a much longer career than this player, and was not a good of a shooter, actually. Ben, last guess.
Dude. I'm trying to think like stretch power forward, but there weren't even that many. Like they were all like big bodied too.
And he is a big body, but he is also a stretch 4, stretch 5. Are you
Especially
ready?
back then.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to tap out.
we're
I'm
gonna
have to
tap out.
on mine.
This is Mehmet Okur.
There's no way I would have guessed that, man. There's no way.
In the NBA from 2002 to 2012, 3 teams, and he is an absolute Turkish legend. Also won a silver medal for the FIBA World Championships. And fun fact, he was a player development coach under Jay Triano for the Phoenix Suns before he was abruptly fired. So, today's player spotlight is one-time All-Star Mehmet Okur.
Yeah, I had no idea he was on that Pistons championship team, but I knew you weren't going to give us something too easy to give us one of the core guys off that team.
Dude, if you asked me if he was an all-star, I would have bet my life savings that he was not an all-star at any point in his career.
I looked 2 years later, he had better stats. He shot over 40% from 3, was not an all-star. So I can't tell you what Deron Williams was doing that year that made him better.
All right. Great pull there, Daniel.
Yeah,
And great
that was
way
a
to
good
build it up with the anticipation. So we're going to move here into a couple of the games we were talking about last episode. they actually did happen. So we're going to talk about what happened in those games, what we think about it. We do have some stats here we want to look at that Sean's going to pull for the Dallas and LA game, Luka's return.
Yeah, we got a Luka return game. LA ends up coming away with it 107-99. Obviously, the Mavs are undermanned right now without Gafford, without AD, but they still had Clay and Kyrie play. Luka ended up coming out with a triple-double, 19, 15 boards, 12 assists, but he didn't shoot too great from the field. He shot 6 for 17. LeBron, big game, 27 and 12. And then on the Mavs side, Kyrie kind of carried with 35. But yeah, Lakers end up coming away with this one. Luka, big game. Didn't shoot too well from the field, obviously. He would come out kind of hyped up, but still came out with a triple-double. Did Luka things. So, yeah. What do you guys got on this?
I mean, Luka is obviously still rusty from his injury. I'm watching the game tonight. It's in the third quarter against the Clippers. He's 5 of 14. So those people who thought he's going to come, he's going to get 40 on his head. No, I mean, Kyrie ended up being closer to 40 because Kyrie knows that's what he has to do for the Mavericks to have a chance of winning. But Luka just played, I thought, in control. He's learning how to play with LeBron right now, and really seeing this sort of two-man back and forth, either guy can take the lead is really refreshing because it's been a while since we've seen LeBron have another guy where he can go, here, you take the ball. Even when he was playing with Cleveland, it wasn't the same as when he was playing in Miami with Dwayne. So I'm really enjoying this experiment. It's working. The Lakers are winning, but I'm curious to see defensively how it's going to hold up because we don't have that much time until playoffs.
Yeah, I'll also add that I think it was interesting with the arena chanting, "Thank you, Nico." It definitely seemed like a high school rivalry, crosstown kind of game where the crowd is playing a big role in it as well. Another thing I'll add is that usually at the NBA as a business, when players get traded, it's looked at as a business move. But in this case, I actually think it's looked at more as a personal move because they don't trust in his personal, maybe even work ethic, but just level of ability to practice and stay healthy. And they're going to have to see how that kind of works out in terms of Luka. But I think this one actually is more personal than it would be business. And I think that's why it hurt Luka so bad is because they looked at him as an asset and they didn't believe in the player and person that he is, his lifestyle off the court and things like that. So we'll move on here from Luka versus Dallas and we'll go to the Rockets and Bucks game, which had some crazy stuff in it as well. I'll have Sean break it down real quick.
Yeah, we touched on this when we were previewing it last week. The Young Guns in Houston actually end up pulling it out 100-97. And tempers flared a bit. We got an Amen Thompson ejection, wrapping Giannis up top, getting a flagrant 2, getting ejected. But Giannis, another big game, doing Giannis things, 27 points, 10 boards, 6 assists. And then it was more of a group effort. Dame had 22, AJ Green, 12 off the bench, 4 threes. And then on the Rockets side, coming out with the dub, also a group effort. Jalen Green led the way with 25. Şengün had 23 and then 11 boards. And then guys all around the rest of the roster came and provided some help there. But yeah, the big story for me coming away with it is what we want to touch on here with the Thompson ejection, wrapping Giannis up top, and then getting a flagrant 2.
So I watched this game live. Of course, I'm a League Pass junkie. I was watching some Toronto, Chicago action earlier, and I think the announcers were surprised when this happened live, and I was as well because it looks a lot worse in slow motion than when it did live. He ends up grabbing his head and turning it. It's kind of like a face mask almost if they was wearing a helmet, which probably does rise to the level of flagrant 2, unnecessary and dangerous physical foul. And I think overall, in terms of that foul, it's one of those things where, you make a mistake and you move on from it. It's not going to hurt Amen. I don't think Ime is putting a whole lot of pressure based on that foul for it. But what came out of this game as more of a surprise to me is just Milwaukee's lack of shot creation. Their offense gets so stagnant at times. And the nights where Dame doesn't have 20, their win percentage is in the freaking crapper. It's not good. So this is a team that sky's the limit. They are up there in terms of talent with Cleveland and Boston, but they can't get it done just because the pieces they have are very, very stagmented, selective, and specialized pieces as compared to the versatile pieces that the top of the East have.
Yeah, and I mean, when AJ Green is your third leading scorer, not even just your leading scorer off the bench, he was the third leading scorer for them total, and that's going to be hard to win games when you're just trying to get all of your scoring load off of Dame and Giannis's back. They can do it some nights, but every night it's not going to work. You need to get some production from somewhere else.
Yeah, and I'll even pile on top of what Daniel was saying. Milwaukee only scored 12 points in the fourth quarter total, and that's just not going to get it done, especially against great teams and elite teams going into the playoffs. You have to be a fourth quarter team that can score, and they're scrambling when Dame's not shot creating on his own. And I think him and Giannis need to kind of utilize one side of the court, maybe run a pick and roll kind of scheme there, backside action. They have to do something different because they can't score against teams that actually play pretty good defense. Another thing I'll add is that Jalen Green and Sengun both combined for almost 50 points. And that young core is really coming into their own. I said it previously in another episode, but I do really, really like this Rockets team. I have no affiliation to the Rockets, but I think that they're one of the most enjoyable teams to watch if you're not super into basketball. I think that the way they play, it's very fun for somebody who might not be a super big NBA fan. So they'd be a good team to just turn a game on and have it on in the background. But to add on to what Sean was saying about the flagrant, I think that you don't see that often anymore, but that used to happen all the time. Like 25, 30 years ago, that would be considered a regular foul for the bad boy Pistons because they used to have a no easy buckets rule, that kind of no easy layup mentality that you don't see anymore. But if you've had a coach, in the past, maybe growing up, who was kind of an old school coach, they would mention that to you. And it's cool to see those fouls now, even though they are, ejections and flagrant twos, but you don't see it often anymore. So when you do see it, you think it's really bad. But in reality, if you turn on highlights from 25, 30 years ago, there's like 2 or 3 of those a game. So it's just how the NBA's evolved. You kind of have to adapt and move from there. Do you guys have anything else you want to add on that game?
Yeah, just to touch on the foul again, obviously Amin, he was going for the ball. Like, he wasn't trying to injure Giannis, so it's just a tough situation you find yourself in where the refs go to replay and they see something that they didn't see live. Like, I would say if they were going off of just the play live, it probably would have been an F1 and Amin would have stayed in the game, but they went to replay and slowed it down, but he was going for the ball. He was not trying to injure Giannis, so let's just leave it there and move on with that.
Yeah, I mean, it could play into it that it's Giannis. They don't want him to get hurt. It's kind of a star call to protect him, but I agree with what you're saying. We're going to talk about one more game here. I'm going to swing this over to Sean again just to get some quick stats, but this one is the Pistons beating the Celtics. Very interesting.
We get a surprising blowout here from the Pistons, 17-97. The Celtics can't even strike 100 here. They were down Jaylen Brown in the game, but just didn't end up playing well. They got 18 off the bench from Pritchard and then 18 from White and 27 from Tatum. But other than that, you didn't see too much going on from the rest of the team. And then on the Pistons side, I want to add an interesting note from the box here. Every single player on the team was positive in the plus minus except Tim Hardaway Jr. And then Cade had 21 and 11. Jalen Duren had 13 and 7. And then Tobias had 16. Another team effort here, but Pistons end up winning big, 117-97.
Yeah, and I'll just add really quickly that I don't think that the biggest thing that we should take away from this game is that the Celtics are closer to everybody else. It might be that the Pistons actually are a lot better than we were expecting. And I think people need to kind of take a step back and look at this team while they're still young. They're kind of where Oklahoma City was when they started that young rebuild, where they got one really good young guard, they got a really good young big, and then they kind of built around that. And I think that the Pistons might have the same type of prototype that they're trying to build in terms of that team, maybe without the draft capital, but the same type of team. And I think that they might be kind of clicking in that way, bringing in some old veterans to kind of help mesh the locker room maybe and the leadership. But I think that the Pistons really might be actually making a push here that nobody was really looking at. And I think we need to make sure that we highlight that as well.
One quick stat that I saw today, Malik Beasley is shooting, I think it was like 200 more attempts off catch and shoot than any other player in the NBA right now, just because of the way Cade is opening him up. So it's amazing to see how a specific role-playing piece can come in and fit a system perfectly. And it's a brand new system. They've only had 50, 60 games to put it together, but you have a lot of familiarity with the roster and the people you brought in. They came in and fit perfectly. So great job to Trajan Langdon for putting that together in Detroit.
Yeah, to emphasize Daniel's point there, Malik Beasley in this game had 26 on 6 threes. So filling that role, the catch and shoot role perfectly for Cade to hit his shooters and hit the shots when needed. Good on Malik Beasley. I feel like he's kind of revitalizing his career over in Detroit right now, having an amazing season.
All right, perfect. We are going to move over to a new segment we got over here for Sean specifically. He's going to talk about the injury report. Since it is pretty prominent right now in the NBA, we want to make sure we highlight some of those injuries. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Sean.
Yeah, this one guy is the reason I kind of wanted to include this segment tonight. We get some bad news on Joel Embiid that he's out for the season once again, and this is just a recurring nightmare in Philly for Joel Embiid and the organization. It sucks, man. I'm not sure how much longer Philly can hold on to the idea of what Joel Embiid is rather than what he actually is at this point. Joel Embiid, we find out today he's out for the season after meeting with a few doctors and specialists. Do you guys have anything about the process and Joel Embiid?
I want to defend not Joel Embiid's health, but I want to defend Joel Embiid as a person. I think he takes a lot of flack for something he can't control. He didn't ask to have bad knees. He didn't. And the way his body type is made up is probably not suitable for basketball. Like he's not a great lateral mover. And we saw that. A lot of what his game was and is taking up space. You know, he uses his frame very well and he creates angles for himself by using his frame in a different way than Jokic, but in a similar sense. You know, he's not like Anthony Davis where he's going to use a lot of his athleticism. And so when your knees can't hold on to all that weight that he's holding on to, that's where you get a lot of these injuries. And I'm just glad he got paid. It's hard to see if you're a Philadelphia fan because he is your MVP and he is all your hopes. But as somebody who watched Greg Oden kind of not pan out, I'm just glad for the man Joel Embiid that he's going to be able to take care of his family and take care of these health issues that basketball has caused.
Yeah, and I'll add on to what Daniel's saying. I'm glad that you bring up the human aspect of him because he is still a person. Obviously, nobody wants to go through injuries, so it is a little bit disheartening to see such a high-level player not finish a season or play that much even at all this season. But we kind of grew up, watching LeBron dominate for 20 straight years. So we kind of expect all-star level players to be able to do that. And not all of them are made like that, which is what makes LeBron so special. But I think we're seeing Joel Embiid on definitely the downfall of his career. He did already hit his peak and his high with that MVP and then also having multiple dominant seasons in a row. I don't see him really bouncing back from this at all. I think that he's stepped too far away from basketball. And in my eyes, I don't think he can come back. Even if he comes back, I don't think it would help the team at all. I think that the team would struggle as well.
Yeah, let's get off of the Joel Embiid topic. It sucks. It really does. And we've seen this story over and over again for him. And hopefully we can see a good bounce back story out of that. But yeah, let's move on. And then next person I want to highlight here is Anthony Davis on the other side of that Luka trade. He'll be out at least another 2 weeks, it looks like, but he will be coming back soon. Looks like 2 weeks on AD there. You guys got any thoughts on AD coming back here soon?
If I was a Mavericks fan, I would be the least happiest camper in the park right now because that guy is supposed to be what is pushing you to be a win now team. And without him, you're not a win now team. So what's the point of making the trade? So to me, it's kind of like you made this move to win now. If he's not going to play now, you're not going to win now. So it's kind of counterintuitive on my side here.
I'm a flip to the other side of the coin. I do think Anthony Davis at least has the championship experience. Both him and Kyrie won championships with LeBron, and they know what greatness looks like, and they are both bona fide Hall of Famers. So I think as long as he comes back by the playoffs and is actually healthy, not the halfway healthy that we've seen for Anthony Davis in the past, I think that the Mavericks are going to be fine. The bigger concern is seeing the three centers that they have all be hurt at the same time. That is concerning with Gafford and Lively out as well, because you're playing two-way players at that point and bench warmers like Max Prosper. And, if you need to get into that top 6 range to avoid the play-in, it's not looking like that's going to happen. There's just not enough. Not only is there not enough scoring, but you're seeing that on the other side of the ball, too, that they're giving up well over 110 points a night usually. It's just hard when you don't have the guys. You're throwing Kessler Edwards out there and making Nick Stauskas comment about it. I mean, you can tell you the injury stuff is bad in Dallas.
And yeah, it's like Daniel can read my mind here because the next person on my list was actually Daniel Gafford. A really tough injury though. It's not looking as good as AD. He has a grade 3 MCL sprain, which is not a tear, but about as worse of an injury you can have in your knee without it being a tear. This will keep him out 6 weeks, which is just about 2 months and will be just about playoff time when he comes back. So Anthony Davis's other big in the post, it's going to be out at least 2 months, it looks like, and come back around playoff time. And they already touched on that, so we'll move on to the next person, which is Jalen Suggs. We got news today that he's most likely going to be out until playoffs with a knee injury. So that sucks for the Magic, but they've already been without him. It's just a setback in his rehab type of thing that he'll be out until at least playoff time.
I'll add in here really quickly. I am moderately high on Suggs, mostly because he's one of the point guards in the NBA that plays defense and plays it at a high level. And I think that Orlando's really going to miss that. He is a steal machine. If you watch him play, he's always hunting the ball. He's always getting his hands on the ball at some point somehow. And I think that Orlando kind of needs that to create offense, to help them create a little bit of offense when they get stagnant. Him being the main facilitator and able to create defensive stops to push that into offense as well. I think that they'll really miss him, and that when he comes back, it'll help them a lot. So I'm big on Suggs.
Jalen Suggs, top 5 perimeter defender for sure. I think if I'm Jamal Mosley, coming from a coach's perspective, you want to see what you can get from guys like Anthony Black. You want to play Tristan da Silva as well. And I think getting your guys as much playoff experience as possible, because you know you're going to make the playoffs, but you also know that it's probably going to be in the play-in. And that's just where it is, because you haven't had the health for one single game this season. And that's fine, because at the end of the day, you have both youth and financial flexibility on your side. So if I'm Jamal Mosley, I know that I need to maximize my depth and I need to go deeper and think about, when I play KCP, what lineups am I playing him with? How can I get the most out of my 6, 7, 8, and 9 guys on the bench without giving Goga Badatse the minutes he was getting without Wendell Carter, obviously, so that by the time we roll around next year, can we win a title? Because that's what it comes down to. Is Paulo, Franz, and Jalen going to be enough to win the title, or do we have to make a move? And that's ultimately going to be up to the GM, but I think Jamal can play a big part in that, especially if he wants to stay in Orlando for a long time.
Yeah, those are good points there, and Jalen Suggs, he'll be back around playoff time, it looks like. We'll move on to the next person on the list. This injury actually happened yesterday. Ben Mathurin spraining his wrist and ending up going to be out 2 to 3 weeks here. The tough thing for the Pacers, too, is he was just coming back from an injury just to get re-injured again for 2 to 3 more weeks.
Yeah, Ben Mathurin was the second best scorer on the Pacers, in my opinion. We can look at stats all we want, but when you watch the Pacers play, a lot of the offense is not generated by Halliburton per se, but it's actually the pressure that Mathurin was putting on from the perimeter. And then it freed up a lot of options for Siakam in the high post, pick and roll options. But Mathurin has really developed into his game to show us what we saw from Arizona, where he could just get off single blow-bys and not have to make a whole lot of moves and chew up a lot of shot clock, which I've really been impressed with. And I personally don't like Benedict Mathurin, but what I do respect is the fact that he's able to put a lot of pressure on the rim and also show me 3-level scoring potential. So it's unfortunate for the Pacers, who are fighting hard for seeding right now, to go without him, because now you're going to be relying on guys like Ben Shepherd and other people to fill in who are just not the same caliber of player.
Yeah, I'll just add in quickly on Mathurin. I think that he's kind of like a firecracker scorer, where he gets really, really hot, and then some games he's not super hot. So it's kind of inconsistent there, but you definitely want to see him progress. I think the second half of the season would have kind of helped him to kind of maybe move into like a Jalen Green kind of role, where he needs to be kind of a prominent scorer on the team, especially with Halliburton having a pretty down year. But we'll see what happens. I don't necessarily know how long he's going to be out, but he definitely brings a lot of needed scoring to that Pacers team.
Yeah, and then those are good points on Mathurin there. I think they're going to miss him, and then his scoring ability for the next couple of weeks. The next person I want to move on to is actually somebody that we're going to end up seeing this season that we weren't expecting. Jaden Ivey has had progression in his rehab process, and that has shown that he may be able to return this year. He transitioned into a walking boot. Obviously, last year he had a really gruesome injury where he broke his leg, and the training staff in Detroit is saying that in 4 weeks they'll be able to reevaluate him to see if he'll be able to start running and start physical activity again, which is great to see after having a pretty gruesome injury like he had last year.
I love Jaden Ivey. I think you want to do what's best for the player first and foremost, especially knowing that you have him under contract for a couple more years on the rookie deal. And so I would bring him in, play him a couple minutes if he's healthy, but ultimately it doesn't hurt to be conservative because the Pistons are already playing so well. Bigger question is where I think if you watch to see what the approach is that the Pistons take, it's going to tell you a lot about what they think of Jaden Ivey. Because if he comes back and he starts playing a lot right away, that tells me they really think Jaden Ivey's the second guy with Cade. And it's interesting to see because Jaden Ivey has a lot of potential, but a lot of room to grow, more so than other young stars.
Right, and then we have another type of thing here that I was mentioning before. Brandon Ingram is expected to make his Raptor debut within the next 2 weeks. So Brandon Ingram ended up just getting moved from New Orleans to Toronto. He's expected to make his debut within the next couple of weeks from an ankle injury.
Yeah, I don't really think anything could help that Toronto team, unfortunately, especially with the injuries that they've dealt with throughout the season. They've been gone through the entire season without Emmanuel Quickley, and he's kind of just coming back and getting back into his groove now. But I don't think that anything can really save them from the season that they're having. But it's looking pretty rough.
I think Masai should get his references ready.
And then moving on to the next player, we got Chet. Chet just came back from a long-term injury to get injured again, but it was only a day-to-day type of thing. Chet is going to be huge for OKC down the stretch, and he's only played in 7 games since being back from that broken hip, but OKC being fully healthy could be pretty scary going down the stretch. And they will have Chet fully healthy. One last player on my list is Mitchell Robinson actually returning tonight as well. Knicks getting a huge piece back of their rotation that they've been missing the whole season. And that makes them fully healthy, and Mitch playing tonight is huge for the Knicks. So those are the guys I wanted to speak on. Those are the guys that are injured or coming back soon around the league, and we'll move on from there.
Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead here and move on to our games to watch. So I got a couple games here that I wanted to highlight for this coming week. This is going to include days after Sunday, which is when this is going to be posted, I think, for the podcast. So this is going to be weekday games for this next coming week, which is the first week of March. So the first game I want to highlight is March 3rd. We have the Rockets and the Thunder. I think this is going to be a big Showtime game. 2 young teams that are super hot, super well equipped to play against each other. What do you guys think for this one?
Is this 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 in the West? Does anyone know?
I think as we're speaking, it's 1 and 2.
Okay. Well, I think, man, the Rockets could really use this. There's both these teams. There's an unbelief in them as real legitimate contenders right now. But the Rockets more so know that there's a gap between them and Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma City's going to walk in expecting to win this game, even if they're down in the third quarter. But for Houston, this kind of speaks to me as sort of a prove it, show me game. And I know Ime is going to be bringing out all the tricks up his sleeve to try and pull off a win in this series. So I'm interested to see what Ime has in his tactics for taking away all of those threes that Shai creates. And I'm also interested to see on the Oklahoma City side, just the dynamics with the 2 bigs they have now and how it fits in compared to their 5 small lineups.
Okay, perfect. And then the next game we're going to highlight here is we got the Warriors and the Knicks. This is going to be at the Garden Tuesday, March 4th. I'm highlighting this one because Steph's coming off that incredibly hot game that he just had, along with a game winner from OG today as well, as we're recording it, which is Friday, February 28th. I think this game is 2 teams that are moving in the right direction, and I think it's going to be interesting to see them go at each other.
Yeah, and I touched on it slightly in the injury report, being that the Knicks are now fully healthy, and this is the first time we've seen the Knicks be fully healthy all year. So a fully healthy Knicks team against a red-hot Golden State Warrior team. It'll be a good game. I mean, the Warriors are 8-1 since making that big trade for Jimmy, and it'll just be a good game, I think. 2 teams that play kind of same style of basketball, want to push the pace, want to shoot a bunch of threes. I think it'll be a good one to watch if you're looking out to watch for a game next week.
Awesome. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about another category, which is going to be called games not to watch. We have a game on Wednesday, March 5th. This is the Cooper Flag Toilet Bowl with the Utah Jazz, who are 14-44, and the Washington Wizards, who are 10-48. An absolute dumpster fire.
I would just like to say that I will be watching all of these games, but these is probably the two least talented teams in the NBA. And Markkanen is hurt as of right now. Jordan Poole is hurt as of right now. You could argue those are the two best players in this game. So this is, I don't know why you put this in this category, Ben.
Yeah. Like, unlike Daniel, I will not be watching that game. I will find better things to do with my time.
Exactly. And then moving on here, I got a couple more games I want to highlight. I'll just go over these two quickly here unless you guys want to add something. We have the Lakers and the Knicks on Thursday, March 5th. That one's going to be in LA at Crypto Arena. And then the following Saturday, which is March 8th, we have the Lakers and the Celtics in Boston. So I think both of those games are going to be big Showtime games as well. Big cities, big teams. And I think that if you casually enjoy basketball, those would be the games to tune into.
We hear a lot about blue bloods in college basketball. Those are the blue bloods in the NBA going head to head. So we'll be pretty excited going into next week to watch some of those games.
Perfect. So those are the games I had to keep an eye out on, and also a game to not keep an eye out on. And then what we're going to do here is slide the last little segment over to Sean today. He's going to cover our Today in NBA history.
Yeah, so we're recording today, which is February 28th. And in 1967, where were you in 1967? If you were in San Francisco, then you just witnessed Wilt Chamberlain missing his first shot in 4 games to end his streak of 35 field goals in a row. I have a little bit of trivia here for my co-hosts. Who has gotten closest to that streak? Does anybody have any ideas?
35 straight made field goals.
Yes, without a miss.
It's got to be a big man that is super efficient.
I'm going the other way. I think it's Klay Thompson.
No, it's not Klay Thompson.
It's a big man, isn't it?
It is a big man. And this streak was almost broken last year. There was a little bit of smoke about it. I'm not sure if you heard about it, but this streak was last year, and I did hear about it.
It's got to be super efficient.
I'm going to give 2 guesses of left-handed big men, and I'm going to tap out. Okay. I'm going with DeAndre Jordan.
That is a good guess. That is incorrect.
My second guess is Nick Claxton.
I feel like that's a bad guess, which is also incorrect.
No, dude, I think it was Daniel Gafford.
Bingo. It was Daniel Gafford. Last season, make 33 in a row. He was 2 away from tying Wilt, 3 away from beating Wilt, and ended up missing a layup. Daniel Gafford.
You heard it here first, folks. Daniel Gafford is the modern-day Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay, let's not go that far. Wilt Chamberlain had like 37 rebounds in a game.
I do have another moment in NBA history, though. We're not done there. In 1981, just about 15 years later, where were you? Calvin Murphy misses a free throw when he made his previous 78. Does anybody have any ideas about who the new record is for free throws in a row?
Oh, it happened after 81 or whatever?
This happened in 1993.
Well,
For the
I'm
next
gonna go
person,
Steve Nash.
I'm not sure even how old Steve Nash was in 1993.
give me Chris Mullin. I have no idea.
Yeah, you guys are not going to get this. It was 97 free throws in a row by Michael Williams.
Michael Williams?
97 in a row. But I do have a little caveat here. There is somebody in recent memory that made 30 in a row last year who missed their last one at 39. Does anybody have a guess who that is? Because I guarantee you, you're going to be wrong with who you guess that made 38 free throws in a row last season.
Jalen Hood-Schifino.
No, but that's the kind of random guess I'm looking for. I'm not going to lie.
Dude, I was gonna say Chris Paul.
You're going to be so surprised when you hear this.
I can't think of a role player that would shoot 38 free throws.
Alec Burks.
I'm just going to give it to you. Scoot Henderson, 38 free throws in a row. Scoot Henderson last season.
That explains why I wouldn't know.
And this is a record that I feel like will be around for a long time because anybody who's even been in the general vicinity was Scoot with 38. And the record is 97. So I'm not sure if we're going to see this record be broke for a long time. And the last thing I want to touch on for February 28th, today in history, in 2003, number 33 goes up into the Raptors in the Garden. Patrick Ewing gets his jersey retired. So I just want to end on a little Knicks note right there and to end our podcast here for today. Patrick Ewing, respect the legend.
Had to make my night worse when we lost to the Cavs. Love to see it. No, all respect to Patrick Ewing. Not his son, Patrick Ewing Jr., but Patrick Ewing.
All right, well, we had a good time today filming. Thank you guys for stopping in with us and listening to the Pack the Paint podcast. We'll be around next week as well for another episode. We hope you guys have a great week.
Back to paint.
Pack the Paint.